I'm Gab. He's not Jules. He's Rob Palmer. Thanks for coming in. Jules can't join us today, but it is the final Gab and Jules show of the 2024-25 season. And what a way to go out. And by the way, I know you guys are thinking that Jules isn't here because Paris Saint Germain got their backsides handed to them. Would that be fair enough?
I think it actually it organised a party and it all went horribly wrong for him, didn't it? So yeah, please look out for Jules out there if you can see him wandering around the streets.
Tell you what, it's a good thing Jules doesn't drink after that performance. We'll be hitting that. We'll be hitting the women's Euros. We'll be talking transfers, Gyökeres, Arsenal buying everybody in sight in the men's and women's game. But let's start with this. Chelsea are world champions. I know, it sounds weird to say, right? But this is maybe the new normal. Every 4 years, we'll be saying this for club sides.
Yeah, going to be world champions for the next 4 years. They're probably already selling the shirts with the patches on in the club shop as well. It's probably got a premium on tickets to come to London and see the world club champions in action for the next 4 years. And yeah, and we can scoff about it, but if you look at it as a football game and as a tournament, they deserve to win it as well. But it probably goes a bit deeper than that, you're going to tell me.
Well, I think so. When it comes to this final, there's no question. Paris Saint Germain had the momentum. I think they were the clear favorites in this final. Mm-hmm. People can look at Chelsea's run to the final, look at the fact that obviously they lost in the group stage to Flamengo, were taken to extra time by Benfica, although frankly, I mean, they battered them and it was more like the delay and whatever. That was a bit weird, the way that game turned out. In the end, though, you have to win the 90 minutes. What came before doesn't really matter. And Chelsea came out of the gates so well, with so much energy, so much intensity. Maresca said afterwards, we came out strong. We knew we couldn't keep it up the whole game. And we scored the goals in sort of that first half hour that won the game for us.
Yeah, it was a total team performance, wasn't it? A couple of scares early on, and Sanchez, the goalkeeper, has got a lot of stick, and everybody's saying that Chelsea need a new world-class goalkeeper. I'm told was what do we call it? We don't call him superior player of the game, or whatever we call it these days, don't we? Man of the match in old school parlance. He had a brilliant game. They needed him early on as well. But Maresca, it was a total team performance, the players out there on the field, but also Maresca and the coaching staff as well, because from the start they were pushing them back. They weren't allowing Paris Saint Germain to get the ball out. They were crowding them. They were smothering them. I thought Gusto was absolutely superb on the right-hand side, because every time they came down that right, he stopped it, and they're setting Chelsea away on the left-hand side. And Maresca was saying at the end of the game they were targeting Núñez, and maybe not necessarily him, but where they perceived the weakness to be. And most of the goals came from that side. Most of the chances came from that
Mendes.
side. Nuno Mendes, yeah.
Yeah. I think Maresca, a little tactical tweak, masterstroke. Not, I mean, it is something we've seen before, but the way they executed it by playing Reece James in midfield, essentially you created a chain down that right-hand side with Malo Gusto, Cole Palmer, who was deployed wide right again, and sort of Reece in kind of that half space that had so many beneficial effects. It allowed Malo Gusto to get forward without being terrified of Creature sneaking in there because Reece could cover for him. And it certainly, when Palmer came inside, you still had the option over on the right, when obviously you want Palmer to come inside. And I thought it worked tremendously well. And you're right about Malo Gusto. It's not just the first goal, but on the second goal, he doesn't actually touch the ball, but he makes that overlapping run, which allows Cole Palmer to do the little body fake, which Vitinha totally buys and creates a space for the second goal.
Yeah, because as you say, maybe he didn't get the ball on that occasion, but he had been getting it, going on those runs down the left-hand side. And that is Palmer's signature, isn't it? It's his calling card to just drop the right shoulder, come in on the left-hand side. And the guy doesn't hit the ball with velocity, but it's an art form, isn't it? The way that he just bends it around the goalkeeper, maybe uses the defender as well to block the keeper's view. And it's probably something they've been... I mean, Manchester City and Pep were saying they were working on the training ground in the morning and then the players were out having a barbecue and family time in the afternoon. I'm getting the impression that Chelsea were doing double sessions when they weren't playing matches, because it was an absolute tactical masterclass.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like complete sour grapes when Pep says that. So the less said about that, the better. João Pedro adding a third. And again, I'm kind of stunned that this is a guy who wasn't even a Chelsea player 10 days ago can come on and have such an impact. We're going to break this down further on the Gab and Jules podcast. I think there's a lot to look at for Paris Saint Germain as well. Not that long ago, Don Hutchinson sat in your seat and said, well, there's maybe only 2 or 3 players that would in the world that would improve Paris Saint Germain. We may revisit that a little bit and also talk more about Chelsea, because this was not just this was an important win financially as well as from a sporting perspective. Rob, when I say this was important for Chelsea, and look, people say, oh, you're always bringing up Chelsea's finances and blah, blah, blah. No, it is important. Chelsea just got fined 31 million euros for breaching UEFA's financial guidelines. There's another, I think, 60-odd million suspended. They know they're facing this, and they're confident that they can make moves. And later on in the quick hits, we'll tell you about how, like, hey, look, they raised sort of some 85 million euros over the weekend in Petrovic and Madueke. But this also brings financial relief as well, in excess of, it'll work out to be in excess of 100 million that they'll probably bring home with this, as will Paris Saint Germain. It'll be close to that. So this is important because it will help them comply with rules coming forward and avoid further penalty. Obviously, it all depends. I certainly get the sense that when I look at this team, it feels so much better rounded and better put together than last season. You have options. It's not just Nico on his own up front. Now you have 2 other. And Mark Guiu. Sorry, Mark Guiu fans out there. You have 2 other legitimate options at center forward. Mm-hmm. Nico, I think, can become an option on the left wing because he is right-footed and he's played there before, which I think is also important. Although obviously they got Jamie Gittins coming in. I feel like this will build confidence in Maresca further. And I think, and I'm sorry, maybe I say it because I like the guy, but I think he deserves a fair amount of credit.
Yeah, going back to chats that we've had when you've kindly invited me on here as the body double for Jules before last season. I think one of the first chats we had was what a good job Maresca did initially, that when he came in, he had a ton of players to deal with, didn't he? That he sorted them out. He got the squad that he wanted, the pool of players that he wanted, and then the other
Not just them, but João Felix too.
Yeah. But the guys that he didn't want, they were kind of moved on or asked to train elsewhere, and he had his pool of players. And then they've added 1 or 2 over the season, so they've had that. And then there's the other side of things, because football these days is played on the football field, but also it's very important with the politics as well. And if you suddenly get 100 million, whether it's dollars, euros, pounds, or whatever, suddenly there'll be somebody at the Stamford Bridge this morning sitting there with a large brandy and a big cigar with the weight of the world lifted off his shoulders, because they have to balance the books. And that now means that they probably don't have to sell a couple of their promising youth players elsewhere.
Well, I think that'll the moving guys on, unless they feel they can make a contribution to the first 11 or will make a first contribution to the first 11 soon. I think that's still part of the business model. I mean, if you show up tomorrow with enough money for, say, Trevoh Chalobah, I think he's gone. When I think of like guys who Chelsea are just absolute untouchables, for a reasonable price. Obviously, everybody's his price. For Chelsea, I mean, it's still the usual suspects. Caicedo, who I thought was exceptional. Mm-hmm. Cole Palmer, obviously. Levi Colwill, who I think didn't have the best season, but I think there's so much ability there, and he's shown before what he can do. And I don't know that there's too many others beyond that. However, what it does do is it gives you a platform, and it gives you that flexibility. You can hold out for a little more, maybe rather than what we saw last year with Conor Gallagher for João Felix, rather than that kind of like accounting wizardry. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a young player we like. Maybe we send him to Strasbourg for a year or on loan somewhere else. So he's still our guy, and we can monitor him. And then if he goes to the next level, maybe he can contribute. Maybe we can get more for him. So I think from that perspective, it's important. What did you make of the fisticuffs at the end? The massive melee for a tournament where people didn't care. Supposedly we're just playing golf and barbecuing, as some people say. It looked to me like Paris Saint Germain were quite angry, as were Chelsea.
Yeah, it was bizarre, wasn't it? Because it wasn't as if there were any kind of, during the game, any controversial moments, or Chelsea won it by a disputed goal, or there'd been any fisticuffs, as you say, during the game, and suddenly you get this kind of...
it did get a little tasty.
A little bit, but it's a final, though, isn't it? But it wasn't like... occasionally when the players were arguing, you were seeing a handshake and they were getting up, and Hakimi, and that there was a sportsmanship about it. But to see Luis Enrique go like that as well is bizarre, because he fizzes on the touchline. And when you see the picture at first, you think it's Donnarumma, don't you? And then apparently you see the pictures, and Luis Enrique has come like some kid on the playground and landed one, it appears, almost on the same square of the field where Donald Trump was going to be posing for a photo just a few minutes later.
We'll get to that in a minute. It did look to me like, I don't know, I think Luis Enrique, I mean, as did Maresca, obviously they're there. It looked like, you see them pulling players away, right? At one point, you see Maresca, he's kind of trying to calm things down, and then he sees Nico Jackson, who clearly has one of the shortest fuses on the team, coming out, and he just
where's
sprints
Nico?
over
Where's
to
Nico?
him.
Where's Nico?
Like, where is
There's
he?
a fight going on. Where is he?
But it looked, the way Luis Enrique got into João Pedro's face, I thought was totally inappropriate from him.
And I don't know what quite triggered it as well. He'd had a great game and he got under the skin of the defenders and he'd been a nuisance. But to in the centre of the field, have that kind of reaction.
Pull your own players away.
Yeah.
Leave the other, let the other team deal with the other team's players. And he gets into João Pedro's face. And you can see Donnarumma's coming in. Donnarumma's got the big frame. He's got the orange shirt. He's visible from the stratosphere. And you're right. It looked as if he's trying to get between them, and it looks as if it's Donnarumma who shoves him to the ground. No, instead it's Luis Enrique who whacks him. And then obviously everybody assumes it's Donnarumma, and then Tosin, who's Chelsea's own heavyweight, comes out and he's like, "All right, you're a big guy, just filled one of our guys. Here I am to go," and whatever. In the end, it all got calmed
it maybe
down.
gives you an insight into the mentality of the two coaches on the day. The fact that Luis Enrique knew he was a beaten man, completely lost control of himself and maybe lost control of his team on the day. And Maresca, the picture you see at the end is Maresca taking Donnarumma away, putting an arm around him and getting him out of trouble as well. And it seems like he's in control of the situation. So maybe it just gives a little kind of insight into what happened during the whole course of the afternoon or the evening UK time.
Maybe, and this is a citation for old timers, but you can look this up on the web, thankfully. Maybe Luis Enrique was having flashbacks to the 1994 World Cup when he ran into Mauro Tassotti's fist and then posed afterwards with had some sort of bandage, some sort of coverage thing on his head. I don't know if he broke his jaw or something, but he looked like freaking Hannibal Lecter. That's how I choose to remember Luis Enrique.
And to be fair, and he had a bit of a history when it came to derby matches in the Clásico as well, with winding up the opposing fans when wearing a Barcelona shirt.
Especially when he used to play for the other team, which, is a bit of an issue there. But anyway, whatever. The man is a genius.
Chelsea won.
Luis Enrique. And well done. Well done, Chelsea. We're going to turn to Paris Saint Germain in a minute, but I cannot not ask you about the trophy presentation. Two things stood out about this actual final. One is the playing of the U.S. anthem before the game. I've never seen the anthem of a host nation played at a football match, at a FIFA football match, unless obviously the host nation was actually playing. People say it's tradition before U.S. sporting events. I went to a bunch of Club World Cup games. I never heard it, but they did it for the final. Do you think we'll see this at the World Cup? Does it matter?
Yeah,
is it something people expect?
Unless it's the TV coverage I've been watching, maybe I've just been zoning in on the games just as they've been kicking off.
Or does zoning?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, if they do that 10-9-8 and come down to kick off. Okay, that's an American thing. I play college soccer or university soccer, and we used to have the national anthem, and I used to quite enjoy, the national anthem when I was playing US sports over there. But to have the US national anthem, okay, the president was in town inside the stadium, maybe that's the occasion. But to have a World Club Championship and not have the national anthems of the two countries as well, just seems a little bit odd to me. So you either have one or you have all three. But it was one of many things which was, let's say, diplomatically different about the Club World Cup.
So playing the anthem before sporting events, that's actually something which in the U.S., it's not something they've always done. It's something, I think it actually started at Yankee Stadium, and I think it was early post-war when they started doing it. What I think is weird is you just do it for the final. Mm-hmm. And again, maybe it's because the president was there. But I think you need to explain this stuff. You need to say, all right. And I also think, Crowds would go watch football in the U.S. or
Do you
sophisticated
know what I would have
enough
done, Gab?
that they're not going to. People are going to say, "Oh, they're going to expect it." Like, no, I don't think they will expect it.
If you do it fair enough because the president is there, maybe we do it if the king was there in the UK. But let's ditch those player introductions before the game, which take an absolute age. The players look embarrassed. Do that, and then have a very short rendition of the two national anthems of the teams that are representing their country in the Club World Cup. There we go. Diplomatic.
There you go. The man fixes everything. But actually, the introductions were cut short this time because all the preamble
Did they just do
before.
last names? Did they? No.
No. You know, before you saw them kind of there were like 30 seconds before each player. They'd go into the tunnel and they'd strut around. It was almost like professional wrestling or UFC introductions. Yeah. Whereas this one, they didn't do that. If you notice, they just came out, and that was supposed to be part of the program. They cut that short because the game was already kind of 10 minutes delayed with all the stuff that's going on. In the trophies presentation, now it's customary. Obviously, the president of the United States and Gianni Infantino, president of FIFA, were together as you'd expect, and they were greeting the players together with Todd Bowley representing Chelsea and Nasser representing Paris Saint Germain, and they give out the medals and whatever. And then it looked as if Infantino and Trump wandered kind of into the stage where Chelsea were going to lift the trophy and. Yeah, seemed like an unusual. It seemed as if nobody had briefed the president of the United States and the president of FIFA here over where he needed to go, which I find remarkable because anybody who's covered politicians, they're briefed right down. Normally, they're briefed right down to you take 5 steps this way, then you go here, then this is going to happen, that's going to happen. That seemed to catch people off guard.
I don't know how easy it is to actually brief Donald Trump. It must be possibly the most difficult job in the world after being the president of the United States. But yeah, it just looks a little bit of a mess, didn't it? And I now understand why. And I always thought it was quite awkward when you have major trophy presentations, when the captain goes over to the president of FIFA or UEFA or whatever, picks up the trophy, then brings it back to the players. And now I probably understand why they do that, just in case Donald Trump wants to photobomb you winning the World Cup Championship. But it did look, when you look at it and you look at it from a distance, it does look like they were trying to just kind of nudge him out, Mr. President, you may want to come this. And he was enjoying it. He was
but I don't think he expected to be in the picture. He just struck me as like he didn't know what was expected of him. I just genuinely don't think he was. I mean, I know people may be critical. It was just a weird, awkward moment for FIFA, from FIFA's perspective.
Yeah.
Like Johnny, if you're going to be looking after him, you need to look after him. You need to make sure.
But is this now a tradition, though? Is it Saudi next, when they do it next time in Saudi and the ruler comes on? Who's going to be brave enough to tell him that you can't be like Donald Trump?
You're jumping ahead to 2034. Next time isn't going to be Saudi. Next time is going to be Spain and Portugal and Morocco.
Oh, that's a lot of leaders to be in one photo.
And Argentina and Paraguay and Uruguay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going to be a full house there.
You're the expert on this, aren't you?
Go over to Paris Saint Germain. So Don Hutchinson sat in your chair not long ago, and he was swooning after the Paris Saint Germain Bayern semifinal or quarterfinal. I mean, he said, how could you possibly improve this Paris Saint Germain team? Mm-hmm. He says there's maybe 2 or 3 players in the world who might improve it. You could make a case for Mo Salah. You could make a case for whoever your favorite center back is, whether it's Saliba or Van Dijk or whatever. And to be fair, by the way, on that point, there was no William Pacho. There's a massive drop-off between William Pacho and Lucas Beraldo. Mm-hmm. A massive, massive drop-off. Lucas Hernandez, of course, suspended as well. Do you agree with that? Or does this kind of bring them down to earth a little bit?
Would it be too easy to say they just had an off day? I mean, they have been excellent. They've been sweeping aside major teams, Bayern and Real Madrid and Inter Milan, and scoring goals and looking sensational. And they are a brilliant team as well. But I think they were just outmaneuvered. It was a better day for Maresca. It was all of the Chelsea players were 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. And they had a collective day where they were probably all 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Watching the game, I think it was the second half before I realised that Fabian Ruiz, who's a tremendous player and the heartbeat of the team, was actually on the field of play. And I think that was when he committed a foul. Dembele, there'd been talk of him, if they'd won it yesterday, maybe being a candidate for the Ballon d'Or. I didn't see him have a kick of the ball. There were players where the game just completely passed them by.
I could care less about the Ballon d'Or, as regular viewers know this, but there's a lot of people who do. And a lot of the voters are people who just tune in for finals and big games, and if they watch this, they're not going to vote for Dembele.
Could be the Palmer family. But Cole Palmer could be doing us proud. He could be the World Player of the Year.
There you go. Yes, your nephew, Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
There's a striking resemblance.
That's why they got me in. Yeah.
When I look at this, though, we can all point out how a lot of Paris Saint Germain's big players contributed very little. Obviously, not just Dembele. Achraf Hakimi was totally stunted. Nuno Mendes had a really rough time, as we said. Kvicha might as well not have been on the pitch. What I will remind people of is Paris Saint Germain, I think, are one of the 3 or 4 youngest teams in Europe, as are Chelsea. So you can legitimately expect more. You can legitimately expect growth from both of these two teams. But if you were Paris Saint Germain, what positions do you strengthen? What do you do this summer? Because you don't want to mess with something that works, right?
No, I mean, the strength of what they've done the last couple of years is they've got rid of a lot of the deadwood and the older players, the stars of the team. But maybe what they are missing, and I don't know the answer when it comes to a single name or a single player, is they maybe need somebody of experience who's been in a situation like that. Again, nobody's played in a World Club Championship before of that, but somebody who's played in a major World Cup match or played in the European Cup final.
Dembele being a world champion, not enough for you. Marquinhos and his million caps for Brazil, not enough for you.
Yeah, or Thiago Silva, somebody like that. Do you know what I mean? But somebody that when they turn to and they're struggling like that, and they get a grip of them and go, right, this is what we do. And I don't think they had anybody in the team. They're all players, as you say, at the peak years of their career, but maybe just somebody who's going to grab a few people and kind of, point them in the right direction. Donnarumma kind of does that, but he's behind the goal, isn't he?
And he also only has a year left in his contract. And they have a big call to make that we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
My final point on Paris Saint Germain is just to remind people, January 22nd, Paris Saint Germain against Manchester City in the Champions League. Paris Saint Germain go 2 goals down at home against Manchester City. It feels to me like everybody has kind of forgotten that. If they don't come back and win that game, which they did 4-2, but it was close. It was tight until the end. Gonzalo Ramos, I think, scored in injury time to give them the win. Then they get knocked out of the Champions League. Then there is no knockout round.
Yeah.
There's even a question of the great Luis Enrique experiment. It almost feels like one of those sliding doors moment. From that moment on, they won 17 of the next 19 games. One of the ones they didn't win was the Liverpool game at home, where with the late goal from Harvey Elliott, which, come on, Liverpool fans, statute of limitations is over. You will admit you were battered in that game as well, right? So it's pretty remarkable. That was your turning point for the better. Is this going to be the turning point for the worse?
No,
I
think it was
so.
genuine. I think it was a bump in the road. I think it's a fantastic developing team. When you look at the bench as well, they've got loads of great young players there. Luis Enrique will have the summer off, head to the beach, maybe run a couple of marathons, cool his head as well. And then they will build for next season. Who they're going to sign to improve that team, I'm not sure.
It's difficult.
But they're not short of a bob or two either. But as you say, if you'd said in January that the 2 best teams in Club World Football were going to be Chelsea and Paris Saint Germain, as you say, for that Champions League run that they went on, you'd have thought we were absolutely crazy, wouldn't you?
Well, and also, it's also worth pointing out all the stuff about, teams are going to be tired late in the season, way too many games, blah, 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 blah. In the end, it was Paris Saint Germain and Chelsea in the final, winners of the Conference League and winners of the Champions League, 2 teams that played a lot of games.